So the next unit that we will be studying is the socio-cultural approach to behavior. In learning about cognitions and even behavior such as attraction in the past, we question the role that environment plays, specifically culture plays in influencing how we process information, what we focus on, how we behave and interact with others, and this is precisely what this unit will focus on and try answering. So, two basic terms that we need to understand before we move into the unit are social norms and what culture is. And both of these influence behavior. Social norms are implicit rules that a group of people learn and follow that then goes on to govern our behavior and interactions with other people. And social norms can differ based on the membership you have to a specific group. Let's say you belong to two different friend circles, the social norms from one group to the other can be different. Culture also has norms and rules that we follow, and often these norms and rules overlap with our social norms and rules as well. In my opinion, the difference has a lot to do with the scale. A social norm can be shared between a group of friends, whereas a cultural norm is shared across different social groups. Culture, it can be defined at two different levels, surface level and deep level. So, surface level culture is what we can directly observe, and it is often explicit. It is a group's clothes, food, traditions, the festivals they celebrate, and their arts, which can include music, drama, dance, and so on. Deep culture, on the other hand, are more implicit. They can be inferred from a person's behavior, but are not really directly observable. These parts of that culture are their ideas, their values, and beliefs. One example could be how different cultures view or believe marriages should be, and their attitudes towards marriage. As an Indian, one of my values are of humbleness, which is being modest and showing low um, focus and estimate of my importance as an individual. So, a very common example of how this may influence my behavior or interaction is when my auntie or uncle offer to give me some money, maybe during a festival or my birthday, and my first reaction is usually to say, "No, thank you, you shouldn't have done that." And that would probably result in some back and forth wherein they try giving me the money and I try being humble and saying I don't want this, or um, I don't need you to give me money. But eventually it would come back to me accepting that gift. Also, this goes into my value of not offending an adult or someone who's older than me. A more surface culture could be seen when I wear a kurta, which is a traditional outfit common to Indians, and also when I wear a bindi, which is the dot on my forehead. This again indicates the culture I belong to. Theories and research in the social cultural approach are based on a few principles and assumptions. First, the social cultural and environment influences an individual's behavior. And like I said, this is based on norms that we have grown up following and also learning from our parents, friends, and society. And we often comply and conform to these standards of behavior and interaction. The second assumption is that human beings are social animals and that we have the need to belong. So we put in a lot of our efforts and shape our behavior so that it fits into the norms of a specific group, but at the same time also differentiates us from other groups. So, like I said in the consumer psychology project, we as human beings have a very fine line between wanting to belong but also wanting to stand out and be unique, which again explains our in group and out group interactions. The third assumption is that our social context, which is situational factors, they play a major role or a key role in our behavior. We've seen the Stanford prison experiment, and in that experiment, there was an extreme condition that the prisoners were, or the participants were exposed to, which is of a prison simulation. And in the presence of an authority who's telling them this is how you have to behave, and this is the role that you will be taking up, which is of a prison guard or of a prisoner, the individuals or the participants became de-individualized, and they actually took up those roles and complied to what is expected of those roles. And they also went to the extent to which they were aggressing against each other. Another example can be seen as peer pressure. Regardless of our values and beliefs, if peer pressure is perceived to be really high, an individual is very well capable of caving into engaging in a certain behavior. And this could be going out to a party or doing something illegal. And again, the situation can influence that kind of behavior. And finally, an individual's view of the world is resistant to change. This again ties back to us being lazy cognitive misers. We want to maintain our beliefs because it takes too much effort to change them and causes stress in the form of dissonance when we are exposed to contradictory evidence or beliefs or values. And again, I think an example of this would be when we maybe go to university, we often tend to look for people that we share commonalities with. And this can usually be people belonging to the same culture or the same nationality. So if I'm Indian and I go to, let's say, Australia to study, I might look for friends or a circle of friends that are Indian as well, because we share maybe common practices, common traditions, common festivals, and common beliefs. It might take me more effort to, again, this depends on how open-minded I am, but most of the time we are resistant. So I might be resistant to a new culture which might challenge my own beliefs or might oppose my own beliefs. So these are the assumptions based on which most theories and researches are based on. And the next thing that I'm going to go over is just the unit breakdown. So this unit is broken down into 3 different parts. The first 2 is for HL and SL, and the final part is only the HL extension. The first part is looking at individuals and groups, and basically our identity as individuals and how that is influenced by the groups that we belong to. Okay, what we learn from our groups, how we identify with our in-groups and out-groups, and how do we discriminate and how do we establish our beliefs and impressions of out-groups, and engage in stereotyping and also prejudice. Okay, so that is what the first section is going to focus on. And we're going to start off by the social cognitive theory, because we've already learned cognitions and this might be a little more familiar to you. So that will be the first topic that we'll be looking at. And then we move on to culture, behavior, and cognitions. And the first thing that we're going to look at is cultural dimensions. And we have been exposed to individualism and collectivism, which is a cultural dimension, and how that influences behavior. So in this unit, we will explore other cultural dimensions such as power distance, masculinity and femininity, the short-term and long-term orientations of time. And so we'll be exploring different cultural dimensions and also go on to see how these cultural dimensions affect our behavior and also our cognitions. And finally, we will learn about enculturation and acculturation. Enculturation is how we learn of our culture and our norms, and acculturation is when we learn of a new culture and a new norm or new norms. And acculturation is very common when we immigrate to a new country or go to study abroad. So that is what the 2 first parts of this unit is going to focus on, which is both HL and SL. The HL extension, on the other hand, is going to look at the effects of globalization on behavior. As time has passed and technology has become more and more refined and travel has become easy, there seems to be a merging of culture and also an emergence of a global culture. Okay, so how is our access to different cultures around the world and also common global norms influencing our behavior, and how these interact with our local and global influences and how the 2 can affect us. Okay, So that is basically the unit breakdown. And to begin with, we are going to look at research. So in the biological and cognitive approach, we have focused a lot on um, experiments, correlational studies, case studies, and also some surveys. Okay, those have been the most common research methods that have been used. And again, these are also present in the socio-cultural approach, but there are more observational researches that you'll come across. So I'm going to ask you to work in a group to decide how you're going to study what this case study basically. So the Kru Krux Klan is a group, it's a white extremist or supremacist group in the United States, and they stand for the purification of America. Okay, so their primary target has been African Americans. So basically, wanting to get rid of African Americans and having a negative influence on African Americans, fight to gain rights as equals of in that country. So again, the Kru Krux Klan or the KKK have also been found in other countries apart from the United States. And again, they have been present in 3 distinct eras and they still exist till date. And they stand for white nationalism, they are against immigration, they stand against what is referred to as Nordicism, which is again of more of kind of like a Caucasian or Aryan supremacy that they want, that they think is under attack right now. And also, more recently, they have stood for anti-Catholicism, which is standing against the religious beliefs of Christianity and in specific Catholic Christianity. And the group has engaged in a lot of terrorism, which is violence based on religious or political reasons, right? So in the past, they have been known to both physically assault and murder, especially African Americans who have been known to fight for their civil rights and have been standing up for their group and their need for equality. Okay, so this is the group that you are going to be studying. Okay, and I want you to decide on how exactly you can try understanding or investigating the motivation of people who belong to the Kru Krux Klan. Okay, how do they do recruitment and also the behaviors of this group? So again, the behaviors have been quite extreme in the past, involving physical assault and murder. So what are the motivations? Okay, and you can focus on either one of these, which is the motivation can be your focus of the research. You can focus on how they recruit participants or group members rather, and also their behavior towards other minority groups. Okay, so you will decide as a group, and you can do this on your team's chat, on how you will investigate the behaviors, the motivations, and the recruitment process of the Kru Krux Klan. Okay, and again, a good point to consider is that this is the attire that a lot of their meetings involve. So maybe that can help you come up with a plan for your research.